Hello, game day. Welcome everybody to the show. We've got one of the most loved characters at the Magpies over the past decade or more, Ben Reid, on the show today. So, Poncho, please give Ben Reid the introduction that he deserves, mate.
And it's a big introduction. So he's a Murray Bushrangers boy from the TAC Cup, pick 8 in the 2006 draft at Collingwood, and over his 152 game career, he became a premiership player in 2010 and won the All-Australian honours in 2011. So, Ben Reid, please give us a hello game day.
Hello game day. Thanks for having me, boys.
Good on you, Reid.
We love it.
How are you, brother? Looks like you're up in your hometown of Bright there.
Yeah, up back home, mate. So I made the trek back from up north, and we got up here, I think, last Monday. We flew into Albury from Queensland and changed our all addresses while we're over up north to make sure we could come back here. And here we are, settled in, and we'll probably move the rest of our stuff up here, which we're moving to next week. So it's exciting.
What, you look like a pig and shit up there, mate. Would you be doing a bit of hunting, fishing?
I haven't, mate. To be honest, I haven't done much since I got up here in the last week. I've just sort of been relaxing and putting the feet up and catching up with a few mates here and there. But not too much. Yeah,
you would be, because you stayed up until pretty much the very end, didn't you?
Yeah, so when I retired, I stayed up for an extra week, and then my wife and we went up to Port Douglas. spent a couple of weeks up there just relaxing, and dragged her around the golf course a few times, which I'm sure she loved. And then we went past Sydney and caught up with my brother and his wife and little one. So it was a good little trip to come back.
Oh, beautiful. I just wanted to give a bit of background to how I knew you. So I highly doubt you remember this, but the first time I actually met you was, I reckon, maybe 2013 or 2014, would have been 2014 when Geordie got drafted, and then a few of us boys went out to Seven nightclub, and then a few of you guys were there, the Collingwood boys as well. And I was absolutely starstruck because a couple of big name footy players, and I was a young lad trying to tag along, trying to be one of the boys, which I absolutely was not one of the boys. But you were always so nice to me. Every time I'd come out there, you'd always remember me. You'd always say g'day. You bought me a drink a few times, and I actually could not believe it. So, mate, it's going to be my absolute pleasure to send you with a few stitch-ups today.
Yeah, I'm sure you got some good stories from someone. I don't know who they'd be, but there we go.
I may or may not reveal my sources.
Yeah.
The first one I've got is that you're up in your hometown Bright now, which is absolutely perfect because apparently you think that there should genuinely be a statue built of you in Bright.
That's not true. But I love it up here and always have. That's probably why I've ended up coming back here when I finished up. Aaron and I always thought that we'll end up in the country one time, and every time I come back here, I just get drawn to the place. So I love it. I don't know about a statue, but they could probably give me a few free drinks here and at the pub, but that's about it.
I hope they would be, mate. And I'm surprised that the alpacas didn't get a mention there, because apparently you never stop raving about your alpacas.
I've actually got, I probably know who you're talking about, to be honest, who's been telling you all this. But I've got all the alpacas actually right in front of me down here. So, yeah.
Yeah, please, let's see them.
Yeah, you can see them down there in the paddock if you see them.
Oh, you'd be thrilled with that.
So I'm sitting here looking at the alpacas, but they're basically just lawnmowers, mate. All I do is keep the grass down. That's about all they're good for.
Can you give us a guess as to who you reckon's told me those ones?
It's either Joy de Goey, Lyndon Dunn, Jeremy Howe, or Still Sidebottom.
It was indeed Howie.
Yeah. So it's pretty, 3 or 4, I reckon, we can tell you everything.
Now, I'm just going to share with you an image that we've got. Now, these are from our good friends at Type Media. It's an Instagram page, and everyone should get around them because they make some absolutely hilarious content. And when I told them about these stitch-ups, this is what they put together. Now, tell me if you think this could be a good idea for the town of Bright. As you can see on the left here, we've got you riding your alpaca, a statue, and then we've got welcome to beautiful Bright, and then we've got this with you. I mean, I'm sure it doesn't reflect well in this department.
Haven't done me very well there, have they?
But as you can see, the statue says at the bottom here, Ben Reid better than Sam.
Yeah, well, I'll take that little bit at the bottom, definitely, wherever they put the statue. But that's not a bad idea on the way in. That's actually at the front of the park. So that's actually the kids' playground. So that'd be a good one.
I reckon we'll maybe give that one a miss then. Now, the last story I've got for you is that we love off-season antics. And
Yeah.
apparently one day, now Cannon not confirmed that this is true, but you got so pissed one day that you have gotten the boys kicked out of Pendle's pub with a 5K tab still to go. So you've cost the boys 5K.
Yeah, that is true. But it was, yeah, I just happened to turn around at the wrong time from ordering a drink, and I ran straight to Levi Greenwood, and he's holding a tray of probably 10 to 20 drinks, and I've just gone straight into him, and they've just gone everywhere, all over the bar, and I was like, as soon as I did that, I knew it was probably on my way out, and I was fairly pissed. And then the best part, no one probably knows the next part of that story, though. Once I did get kicked out, I went with a couple more boys down to this other pub, and so I'm thinking, geez, I've had a rough start of the day here. So I got on this other pub, and I've literally ordered a few more beers, and I've turned around and ran straight into a pole and dropped 3 more beers in the next pub straight away. Like first round, and I was like, I'm having a bad day. I'm going home. So I got a taxi straight away, and went home. But it was pretty tough to take advantage of it.
Oh, I love
Absolutely. I have been known to do that from time to time with a free drink. So another one we got asked I got told, sorry, to ask you about was your favourite pre-game meal. Is there anything to that?
My favourite pre-game meal, or risotto. What?
I didn't get any reference to this either, so I just assumed that there would have been something that would have popped to mind.
No,
so.
Apparently Howie says that it's rolled oats. Is there any story to that?
Right. Well, you guys know Carl Barron, don't you?
Yeah, of course.
So he's got like a skit where he talks about rolled oats. He's like, rolled oats. And I was at Howie's joint one night. I was just annoyed to shit of him talking about, can his missus make many rolled oats in the morning, and just absolutely giving it to him. And that's probably where he got it. But I don't have rolled oats before a game.
I was going to say, it would have felt very heavy on the field, so probably a wise choice. Another one is there any truth to you calling basically anyone and everyone at the footy club Shags or Shaggy?
Yeah, it's fair true. That's point. Yeah, that's true. I don't know where I sort of got that. I think, I don't know, I just sort of started calling people Shagger or anyone Shagger. It's just a bit of a piss take. And then all of a sudden everybody started calling me Shagger or Shaggy, so I started calling everybody else that as well. And then 44 blokes are called Shagger now at the at the Pies. So well, they might not be anymore, but yeah, there is a fair bit of truth to that.
I definitely can confirm there's at least one Shagger at every football club locally. So I'm glad that it's up there in the AFL level as well. And the last one I've got for you, apparently Scooter, who's got Selwood,
Yep.
You guys got pretty close at the Pies. And is there any reason behind this?
I don't know. Why we got real close? Trying to think.
Yeah, apparently you guys just had something a little strong in common.
Something in common. What do we have in common? I got no idea what we had in common. Can you share it?
So what I've been told by Howie and he's briefed us on, it's just because you both live in your brother's shadow. No, I know I feel terrible saying that.
How we would say that is no. There's I'm better than my brother, but Scooter's behind himself. So
Yeah.
If anyone's been stitched up here, it's me stitching up Poncho with these stitches.
Yeah. When I had that one to say, I was like, I don't actually want to say it. It's, everything moves, you should have taken it.
You hear all the stuff. I reckon the funniest thing when you have a brother that obviously plays at the same level as you, all that, no matter who, your best mates will you're either good or bad, they'll always tell you that you live in the shadow of your brother.
Yeah.
Even if you are better or even if you're worse, they'll always say the same thing.
Yeah, I can confirm. Me and my brother are very competitive, and when people say it to me, I crack the shit. So it's the easiest way to get under.
I'd probably say it to him too.
Yeah, exactly right. No one's better than each other except in front of each other. So
if your mates are taking the piss, maybe I reckon it's the opposite. So I reckon you're just doing it to fucking piss you off.
Yes. So those are all the stitch-ups we got for you. Now we'll get into some more career-based and more actual footy-based stuff. And you've had a pretty good career, as I kind of alluded to at the start with the introduction. And kind of, well, on the notion of brothers, actually, my first question is, being 2 years older than your brother growing up in Sydney, what was it like in the backyard? Were you pretty competitive, or did it help you guys kind of grow with your footy skills?
Well, Sam was actually, he was pretty late sort of developer, like growth-wise. So he was always a little bit smaller until he probably hit, actually when I got drafted, he grew up. Like actually, he shot up probably 25 centimeters, I reckon, in 1 year. Where I hadn't seen him for obviously a year because I'd been down in Melbourne because I went down there at 17, so he was only 15 when I left home. So he had a massive growth spurt, and that's when he sort of, I suppose, started to become a good footballer and wanted to do it. But before that, he wasn't really into his footy as much as I was. He loved his basketball. We played basketball together. We played like footy together as well. We're always at that age where we'd have 1 year together, then I'd leave that age group, and obviously 2 year gap in the country. So we had, there were times where we would get pretty heated. Probably more times in the PlayStation if he'd beat me, but he was always better at games. So he'd probably beat me, and I'd try and belt him after he'd probably beat me. So that was probably the most competitive we got. A lot of the time they were on the same team, yeah.
Absolutely. And as a junior playing for Wangaratta Rovers and Bright Junior Football Club, was there ever an early indicator that you would highly likely make a career out of AFL? Or did that come once you started playing with the Murray Bushrangers?
Yeah, well, I was probably lucky I got picked in a lot of rep teams and state teams as a youngster. Like when I was 14, I played in the schoolboys, obviously Victorian schoolboys team, Vic country team. And then obviously you go from there and you make your bushies, and then you play under 16 state. And then I got into the AIS as well. So where you go and play against Ireland and all that sort of thing. So I was probably lucky where I got into all those sort of rep sides. And that sort of gave me a bit of an idea that I'm in the top 20 in the state, I guess you could call it. And then probably when I got to 16, I played a fair bit of basketball and had to make a choice, and I chose footy, and the rest is history. So yeah.
And with that, obviously playing at a high level and being highly touted, what was your draft night experience like? Because, like you said, you must have been touted reasonably high going into the draft, being picked at taking at pick number 8. So, who were the most keen clubs, and what did you expect in terms of going to the Pies, or was there someone else that you expected to land at?
Yeah, I mean, I probably didn't expect to go as early as 8. I was a bottom major and only really got into the draft by a day. I mean, the cutoff then was April 30th, and I was April 29th. So I only just snuck in as a bottom major, so I was really young for my age. Collingwood were keen. I probably spoke to Collingwood 2 or 3 times, and they actually told me the night before that if I'm available at either 8 or 10, there's a chance they'll pick me. But there was also Adelaide, who I think would pick 14 at the time, that I thought I might have had an inkling going there. But I spoke to a fair few clubs, but at the same time, you don't really know until you sort of rock up. And back then, it wasn't a draft night. It was actually, you listen to it on the radio, having breakfast at 11 a.m. Well, I did anyway. I didn't get invited down to it. So I sat there, and I think they invited about 10 or 12 blokes down there then. So I was sitting there having bacon eggs. I actually missed my name getting called out. I was sitting there having bacon eggs, and all my mates and that erupted that I'd been drafted. And I sort of turned around and said, "Oh, where am I going?" And I'm going to Collingwood. And I guess the best thing about that is like to stay in Victoria. So that was a good night, that one. It was get all the boys around and had a bit of a party. So it was great fun.
That's an absolutely crazy way to find out that your mates are just charging to the door and you don't even know where you're going. So
yeah, they're all huddled around the computer screen, I guess it was, and we just had the dial-in internet back then. We were sort of just listening to that, and there wasn't any of this sort of stuff where you can sort of see anything going on. It was just all listening to it on the radio and heard my name go, and that was it. So and down at training, I think it was 2 days later. So it was a quick turnaround.
Yeah, that's actually an awesome story. And then moving into your first 3 years at the club, and you only managed 8 games between 07 and 09. What was your mindset like during that time? And was there much reassurance from the coaching staff?
Yeah, it was strange. I mean, as I said, I was pretty underdeveloped when I got drafted, being 17. I think I weighed about 78 kilos at the same height I am now. So I came in there, we probably needed to put a bit of weight on. I was only 78 kilos, so I obviously probably had to get up, close to the 100 mark if I was ever going to play a key position sort of role. But I sort of played down forward for my first 2 years, and it wasn't really working out for me. And I had times where I doubted whether I was actually going to make it. There were times in that 3 years where I'm like, shit, have I got it here? Am I going to do what I set out to do, sort of thing. So my 4th year I played down back. My 3rd year I played down back in the VFL all year, and went all right and played all right. And so my 4th pre-season came to my 4th year. I ended up playing the whole pre-season down back at training and trained well, had a good pre-season. And then got in the first round and played okay. I actually played pretty shit. I got dropped, and then came back in the team, and I sort of started playing okay, like just getting by. And we played a game against Brisbane up at the Gabba, and it was when Brown and Fev were playing with each other.
Remember those days?
Yeah, and Fev and Brownie sort of. So they're very good at talking shit, put it that way. And Brownie, I was playing with Brownie. I think he kicked 6 on me up until about 3/4 time. And then and they'd be running past me going, Jesus, Reid, the double barrels loaded. The double barrels loaded. And I'm thinking, fucking hell, this isn't going too well. So I'd absolutely shocker. And I'm sort of thinking, Jesus, how's this going to, what are they going to say to me after this game? I think it was about my 10th or 11th game, I reckon. Anyway, I got back to the hotel and I was getting in my lift to go to my room. And Nick Maxwell's picture the lift door closing. I see his hand come through. The last thing I want to do is talk to anybody about the game. And it just happens to be the captain who walks in. And I just go, oh, shit, here we go. So Maxie steps into the elevator and he says to me, he sort of pulled me against the wall. He didn't push me against the wall, but he basically said it to me pretty firm, saying, look, if you don't learn how to play on the big boys and learn to play in our back six, then you're not playing for us ever again. So it was as blunt as that. And I thought, shit, I'm going to be dropped next week. There's no way I'm playing. I stayed on the side and actually, so I came back in. We played Sydney. I played all right. So I stayed in the team. But I think that was a turning point for me when I sort of had as a hard word just saying, you got to learn to do this. And so straight away, I'd started doing a lot more work with Max Hudson, who we got over from St Kilda as an assistant coach back then. And he helped me and Nath Brown out a heap. So my 4th year, that was probably the turning point of my career. And it's funny how footy goes. I stayed in the team for that whole year and was lucky enough to be part of a premiership team. So I played the whole year. And so that was basically when I started to learn how to play and train, I guess, like an AFL footballer.
Absolutely. And as I was going to mention in this question, it does see you end up playing in the most epic of finals, your form leading into this year. And it was particularly unique due to the fact that you drew against St Kilda, which meant back then you actually had to play the grand final all over again the following week. So I actually want to give you the floor on the whole 2-week grand final experience and what that was all like.
Yeah, it was crazy. I mean, if you remember the prelim when we beat Geelong and the crowd was the first granny since, what was it, 03 or whatever it was. And it was their first, and the crowd in that prelim was as loud as I've ever heard it. I don't know if you remember it, as the Collingwood chant around it. It was unbelievable. Like, it was as loud as I ever heard the MCG. And even some of the guys who played in the game a couple of years ago against Richmond, it sounded louder than that. Well, from memory, it was unbelievable. And then obviously they had the whole grand final week and you have the whole parade. You have tens of thousands of people rock up at training all week. It's unreal. Everyone's feeling on top of it. It's sunny. It's spring. Everyone feels awesome. But at the same time, you got a big game to get ready for. And then you have the parade, which is a different thing as well, because you never do that before any other game. You never get in the back of a Hilux and travel around the city. So, that was awesome. And it's an awesome experience. And then obviously, as you said, the draw, was one of those games where we looked like we probably had control for the majority, and then they sort of came back real hard, and we got that lucky bounce in the last quarter that sort of went the wrong way, and but it ended up being a draw. And I still say to this day, it was the most physical, taxing game I've ever played in. It was crazy. It was unreal. But and we were probably lucky in the end that the siren did go. They were coming pretty hard at us. But even when the siren went, I think a few of us still didn't know whether it was time on or we have to come next week. We sort of looked at each other, and I remember laying on the ground next to Sam Gilbert and saying, shit, we're going to come back again and do this all next week. And he goes, yeah. So, I mean, everyone was exhausted. You could see the footage where every player was basically just laying on the ground. And then the next week was sort of, if anything, more like a normal week again. There was no parade. It was just a normal week of footy. Wasn't much training. It was all recovery and getting ready to play again. And I was pretty confident, or we were as a team, that we'd come back the next week and we would win. And luckily we did. And it was an unbelievable couple of weeks, that's for sure.
And if you've played in 2 grand finals over the span of 8 days, the celebrations are twice as exciting. So are there any good stories that come out of the 2010 premiership?
Well, a lot will stay in house with that team.
Yeah.
But it was Look, it was good. But the funny thing is that year we all had our holidays booked. So when we knew we were in the grand final, a lot of the boys are booking their holidays for the 2 weeks later. So we all had to change our flights. I think we all had them booked for basically the Monday after. So we'd be in Melbourne for 10 days and then fly out. But so we couldn't really, so we changed our flights to basically the Thursday after the Granny. So we only had 3 or 4 days, 5 days in Melbourne where we all actually got together. And then a lot of guys are flying out. There were a few guys who had weddings as well, like booked for that next week. So a lot of guys, it was sort of pretty crazy. It was sort of, all the boys were booking, leaving, going to Bali. A lot of us ended up in Bali for 3 or 4 more days together, which worked out well. But yeah, it was a crazy week, and everyone's flights all changed. So it was chaos really. But it was awesome. And I think the best thing about our team there, they're a pretty social sort of group. That we had, and we always, we had a 5-year anniversary, and then every year since then we've caught up once a year over a lunch, and I think that's maybe we're making up for not being able to celebrate for as long as we did, and it's always a great time to catch up with everyone.
Absolutely. And the final question for me before I hand it over to Moose is: you continue your momentum of form into the following year with such a dominant defender, earning yourself a spot in the All-Australian team as a centre-half back. And now that you can reflect on the entirety of your career, what does that individual accolade mean to you?
Yeah, it's something I'm definitely proud of. I suppose it means that for that season or for however long, you're one of the best 22 players in Australia. So, or in your position too, there's probably only 2 positions that you can fill as a key defender in the All-Australian side. So to be picked and be one of the 2 in the league for that year, it's something I'm definitely proud of, and I suppose it's something you never get taken away from you. And yeah, I'm extremely proud of it. And as you said, now that I've finished, you look back on it and think, yeah, it's something that not many guys can achieve. So I'm definitely pretty proud of it.
And back in those days as well, those were the Mick Malthouse days, and he's almost like a mythical figure now because like he's such a famous coach. His whole demeanor is so funny. His interviews with the media are just all time.
Yeah.
What's he like behind closed doors, and what kind of relationship did you have with him? What impact did he have on your career, and so on and so forth?
Mick was the best way I could describe it, was more of a manager and father figure type thing, where he'd oversee a lot of the coaches. So he'd do a lot of making sure everyone's delegating a lot of roles. So it was a lot different. He wasn't such a hands-on. He was more of an oversee it, and you really only heard from him basically like one-on-one probably not until January, February. Before Christmas, a lot of the stuff was his assistants doing a lot of the work. And he was really good with me and Nath Brown, where he brought Max Hudson on board. And he basically said, as soon as Max Hudson got the tour, he goes, I just want you 2 to live in his pocket and just work with him every day and learn everything you can off him. So for Mick getting Maxi in probably had a lot to do with mine and Brownie's careers and having a turning point in that. So it was awesome. Mick, he obviously gave me my first chance at AFL, and I'll be forever grateful for that. Yeah.
And it's kind of interesting to hear that perspective, because whenever I've spoken to Geordie about Bucks and his coaching style, I think he said the big change that Bucks had to make was that he had to like take the reins off a little bit and sort of let the assistant coaches do their job a bit more, rather than trying to hold everyone to a standard of perfection that really only Bucks knows how to do. So it must have been pretty different for you with the 2 different coaching styles.
Yeah, it was. And then Bucks come in, and it probably took Bucks a couple of years to work out how to actually, I suppose, delegate his coaches and work with them. And I think that's been the biggest change with Bucks over the last 3 or 4 years, that he started to do that. And I think you can see in the ways it's helped him. It's taken the pressure off him a little bit as well. But at the same time, there's a reason why you get assistant coaches. Most of them could probably be head coaches themselves. Like most of them are that good. So if you can all work together, I think it only helps more. And I think that's something Bucks has learned over the last few years. And it probably took Mick. I don't know too much about Mick's start of his career, but it could have been the same. He could have been similar to that, or he was that from the get-go. But I'm not sure. But he was always, from when I had him, he was always a delegator and trusted everyone around him to do the right thing.
Yeah, right. There's some good coaches, assistant coaches down there at Collingwood as well. We had Buddha Hocking over for dinner one night back at our old place, and he's a great man, Buddha.
Yeah, Buddha's one of the the best thing about Buddha. He takes the piss around more than anyone I know.
Yeah, he does. I don't know whether he's joking sometimes when he talks to you.
I found that out my first couple of weeks when he got there, and even though I was an older player, sometimes I was like, is he taking the piss out of me here, or is he actually being dead serious? Like, talking. I had no idea, but then when you get to know him, you realise he's such a good fella, and he just loves footy. He loves footy, and you can have a joke with him and talk shit and that sort of thing. That's probably one of the best things about him. He's so personal with everybody. Like even during the when we're up north, a couple of times on the phone, you have a chat to him, and he was always up for a chat. So he's someone I'll probably catch up with the next couple of months as well. Have a chat with him and see if he's around town. But I think at the moment he's building a house down in Geelong from memory. So
yeah, I do hope that we get to see Buddha get a top job one day. He's a great man, and I think that he'd be a good head coach one day. So I hope I do see him get that. Now back to Mick Malthouse. Is there any sort of sprays or stories or anything that you can remember from
me personally,
the great man, or him, or any other players that he sprayed, or any stories, group punishment sessions?
I didn't have any sort of sprays from him on game day, but my first week at the club, I got there and you'd only do literally, for back then, you only do about a half an hour training. And I was out there doing basically lane work, whatever it was, and I think I missed. They would say I had 10 kicks. I reckon I would have missed 8 of them. Like, and absolutely sprayed them. So I'm missing all these targets, and whenever Mick just goes like that to you,
oh no,
I'm in a bit of trouble here. So he's come over. He goes, "Come over here, son." So I've walked over there as a young 17-year-old, and he's just gone, "Right, mate. How about you just sit down here and watch training for the rest of the day?"
oh
no. So I sat there and I literally sat on the boundary line and watched training for the whole time because I could not hit the side of a barn door. So, yeah, it was pretty funny.
That I would actually way rather get a spray than that.
Yeah, so would I. It was almost embarrassing a bit, but at the same time, it might have turned me into a bloody kick because it made me realise that if I don't hit any targets here, I'm not going to last too long.
Were you getting around the boys from the boundary line, giving a bit of applause and a bit of encouragement, pats on the bum, or were you just tail between the legs?
I would imagine I would have sat there in complete silence, not said a thing to anybody, and just hope no one actually saw what happened. So that was one of the things. But like Mick, to be honest, he's never really drilled me. He drilled me a few times at training, but I think one of the things that an older guy, I can't remember who it was, he told me that when Mick's drilling you or having a go, it means that he actually rates you. Like he's pushing you along to be a better player, and then he sees so much in you. So when he does push you hard and says certain things, you know that he actually thinks you're not a bad player. So you're probably in trouble if he doesn't say anything to you. He might think you're not very good. So, but yeah, that was just the way Mick went about it, and he was great.
Right. And you've played with some unbelievable players in your time. Is there any sort of players or characters from the Pies over the years that particularly stick out to you or memorable, like stories from around the change rooms or blokes who are just larger than life or anything?
Oh, we had a rat pack there at one stage, so they were larger than life more than anything. So they were, at the same time, they what made our culture so good there. They were so funny. Like when it was time to have a laugh, they were always the front and center of it, and it was always a great time to be around them. And the best thing about them, they bring everybody into it. They wouldn't be, they weren't arrogant or anything like that. They were just, blokey blokes and enjoyed a beer and always had a good laugh with them, no matter who it was at the footy club. And they're also great with the supporters. So, I mean, that was the best thing about those boys. They got in trouble a few times, but to be honest, they probably got away with more than they got caught with. So, they were unbelievable and still they probably still go to a mischief, those boys, I'd imagine.
I believe they do, but all you hear is stories, and I think that you just have to let the imagination run wild sometimes because no one will ever know the full truth of the Rat Pack. But it's probably best that way, I reckon. Now, when you look back now, obviously you're in Bright now. You've had a few weeks to sort of relax. What does it feel like? Has it all sunk in for you yet? Are you in reflection mode, or do you feel like you're about to go and start another preseason?
Yeah, it is strange. Probably that hasn't sunk in yet. I mean, even speaking to guys who have retired, they say a lot of the time it doesn't sink in until the boys get back at preseason or round one rolls around and, you're up the bush kicking around up there. So, but it hasn't sunk in. I've pretty much just tried to relax and enjoy it and try and catch up with all the people that had a bit to do with my career over the time, and thank them. And I mean, the hardest thing now with all these restrictions, it is hard to. I mean, if I had my time, I'd probably invite 30 people up here and have a big gathering up at my joint, but I'm obviously not allowed to do that. So, look, I'm at the moment, as I said, soaking it in, enjoying it. I'm actually going to have a kick with the Wang Maggies next year up here,
Oh,
so
beautiful.
that'll be a bit of fun. So, to have a kick with them, and I've got 4 or 5 really close mates playing there, so that'll be really good fun. I'm looking forward to that, and getting involved down there and trying to help the grassroots footy, I guess, as well. So, but yeah, I'm just enjoying it, mate, and see where it goes, and I'll work out what I'm going to do with myself probably in the new year.
Yeah, beautiful. And what do you reckon you'll miss the most in terms of being a footy player?
I think I'll just miss the day-to-day stuff. There's not too many jobs that you go to and you're there with 30 mates, 40 mates, and talking about absolutely anything in the change rooms and having a laugh. You're kicking a footy for a job. It's pretty good. So I'll miss all that. The banter, friendships, just going out for coffee, having a beer every now and then, and all that sort of thing. Going out for lunch. They're the things I'll miss the most. Just the day-to-day stuff.
Yeah.
I'll miss the playing and the big games and all that, but I think mostly it's just the banter and the friendships you make along the way.
And on that note as well, who would you say, if you had to pick a few blokes, who were your best mates that you reckon will be lifelong friends for you?
Yeah, well, I obviously got drafted with a few, like Nath Brown, who he left early. I got drafted with him, Tyson Goldsape, Brett McCaffer. We all lived in the same house, so we're all really good mates. Travis Cloak, another one. But the boys that are there now, Sidey, Howie, Geordie Goey. Geordie's one that I get along with really well because he's a city boy, but he's almost like a country boy, I reckon.
Yeah, he's a simple man. All he loves is his dogs and a motorbike, and he's happy.
Which is great, and he's awesome, Geordie. And but yeah, like those guys, Jared Blair, a really good mate of mine as well. So there's a handful of guys. It's hard to name them all. Pendles, but guys sort of my age, I suppose, you come through, and they're the ones you're probably lifelong friends with. At the same time, there's so many, even the younger guys, Tommy Langdon, Darcy Moore, Jamie Elliott. I get along with those boys well as well. So it is hard to sort of, if you invited everyone up, you'd have a bloody reunion every year of past players. So there's just a shortage. Yeah, but it's good to have those.
You can imagine it'd be a pretty special bond though with the boys that you got drafted with and all that, and spent those years, won the premiership with. Who do you reckon was the best player that you played with?
I get asked that one a lot, and it's hard to split them. I think Pendle's, over the consistency that he's done over his whole career, has been the best I've seen. I mean, everyone sort of talks about all these other players in the league, but I think people just fall into the false trap that Pendle's is having a quieter year, where he's really just having the same year as he did last year, which was elite. Like, across his whole career, he hasn't dipped at all. It's just been like the same the whole way, and that's what made him so good. And I think people sometimes think he needs to be playing better, but he's been elite the whole time.
Yeah.
And he's been the one that I reckon. I mean, watching him from the start and to where he is now, he's like a fine wine. It's like he's getting better with age sometimes.
And he's
been the best. He's up.
Yeah,
Swanee, Steelo even, who's side his last probably 3 or 4 years are as good as anyone in the comp. So I've been lucky to play with some pretty good players. Even when I first started, Alan Didak, Heath Shaw. I haven't played a year with Bucks and Jimmy Clement and those guys. So I've been lucky to play some pretty good players.
It is hard, and you've given a lot of boys raps there, so you haven't left anyone out, which is elite. Now, over the next few weeks, we're going to be interviewing a few blokes who are just hanging up the boots, just to celebrate a few careers, and we love doing that. And then after that, we're going to be interviewing a few draftees. So we're kind of doing the whole circle of life of the football circle. What advice would you give to a few blokes who are coming into the AFL system now in terms of starting out their careers, what's important and whatnot?
I think the best thing they can get is get into a routine, and get sort of set into a lifestyle and get used to it as a lifestyle, because that's what AFL is like. It's a job as well, and it's a lifestyle, and you got to enjoy it as much as anything. Of course, you got to enjoy it, but I think as soon as you can learn to do all the right things, all about recovery, diet, all that sort of stuff, I think that'll hold you in the best stead. And at the same time, I think you got to listen to the close ones around you. Don't listen to the media, all that sort of crap. Just listen to your friends, family, manager, the closest people, because they're the only ones that really matter. Everyone else who thinks they know and all that. I mean, it is great having fans and all that, but at the end of the day, you only listen to the people who are your close ones. That's what the biggest advice I give, because they're the ones that would care the most, and the ones that probably want to help you the most as well.
Mate, I could not have asked for a better answer than that. And I could not have asked for a better interview and a better bloke to interview. And thanks for giving us the privilege, mate, of interviewing you after you've hung up the boots.
Thanks, guys. It's just about to get dark here too, so we've timed it for perfection, I reckon.
Exactly right, mate. I'm sure there's a nice hot dinner waiting for you, unless you're cooking.
Hot dinner from Mum, I think it is, and a couple of beers too, so it'll be nice.
Good on you. Well, thank you so much, Reid, mate. Really appreciate it.
No worries, guys. Thanks for having me on.